It's all right, mate. I know for you, this is the fucking highlight of your day. It's only the third show I'm doing today, back to back to back, because I'm built like that. So I know you every time. I'm getting your best every single day. You're prepared. You're doing the fucking wax on, wax off. You're eating a macrobiotic diet before you come on the show. I just rock up after doing 4 hours of other content elsewhere. And I go, right, let's get some of this shit together. What are we doing here? Jokes. Something that I just fucking roll out with the show. Because, some people are like that, Loco. Some guys can just come out of a fucking heroin coma and go, all right, give us a fucking fight before I go on stage, and then go out there. Right, any of you groupies want to fucking come back? And then you just roll off like that. Riot Games balance team are like second only in criminal negligence to the people who did the fucking housing crisis in 2008. I think they're the only people who've mismanaged their own business worse. So anyway, let's start the episode. It's going to be episode 53 of Listen Loco. And our guest for this one is Gbay, who is a guy who's a streamer, and you might have seen on League of Legends subreddit, some of his videos he's done have made the front page, have been pretty well received, because I've noticed you've tried to do... here's the interesting thing. On the one hand, you called them documentaries, which is like, whatever. We won't get into the definition of that. It's more like you took a bunch of footage that was out there and you put it together. And so, yeah, it's kind of a documentary as much as you tell a story of it, but it's not like, you didn't go with a crew and film all the new footage and get all the exclusivity. It's not that sort of documentary. It's more like a fan-made one, as it were, except he's obviously used his own platform for that. And we were talking just before the episode started. In the past, he was actually looking to potentially get into streaming. So anyway... even though this is one of those moments where Loco hasn't thought to explicitly set up how the guest relates to the show, we are going to talk mainly about MSI for this episode, which hasn't actually begun for the main event, but the playing has taken place. There's one game left to be played, which is the one where it's going to be PvP against Vega Squadron to decide the third spot. But I'll give everyone the spoiler again, just because I know how actual entertainment works. I know nobody's... it's actually going to be worse for us if people are watching a VOD and they hear us at the beginning, like, it's all about MSI, and it's like an hour and a half long video. They're going to be like, I'll give this 10 minutes and then I'm out. Don't leave. Later on, there'll be good stuff about players, teams, things you care about. I mean, you, not me. It's going to be like Team Liquid and stuff, but whatever. We'll get to all that. And there's other topics as well. Because as Loco had to learn, you remember how those first 10 episodes went where it was a bit awkward? I had to sort of coach him that when something's not interesting, you jettison it and you move on to the next thing. You just say, fuck that topic. We're skipping it. So let's start in the thrilling world of the MSI. Right, first question. This is a real question, Loco, and it starts with you.
Okay.
Do you actually give a fuck about the playing of MSI? Do you?
So before MSI started, I told myself, okay, Loco, MSI is like a big tournament. There's going to be a lot of teams there, a lot of people watching. Let's make sure you VOD review every single game so you can be...
In some ways, you're white whale. Yeah. MSI, isn't it, Loco? that one MSI didn't work out too well for you, did it?
I've won everything else. I've won a world championship. I am world. Still counts. I've won LCS. I've won LCK. Invitational still counts, but never MSI. So it is the one missing trophy.
You did also win worst drafter at an international League of Legends tournament of all time.
I'm sure I didn't win that. I'm sure there's been much worse. Maybe I'm one of the runner-ups, but I'm pretty sure I did not win that. But anyway,
I don't know about that. But, yeah. Sorry. Yeah.
I was watching play-ins. The initial play-in, Group A and Group B. The level of play is so fucking bad. It's like academy level bad for some of the teams, so I couldn't watch all the way through. So I watched all the best of 5 versus TL and Fengbu Buffalo and Vega Squadron and Flash Wolves, but I didn't watch most of the play-in group games.
I will throw in as an aside, you know what, I'll actually for once be the person who's like, no, don't go too harsh on all those shit teams, even though normally my persona, as everyone knows, is like, for the strong, they are to rule. The weak are to suffer their might. Normally I don't give a fuck about shit teams, but I will say the one devil's advocate I'll give for all these teams that are playing in the play-in is, first of all, some of them either have never played in a tournament of this magnitude, or they only do it, whatever players are still in the team, every 6 months, every 1 year. So it's not like they're getting a massive amount of experience, to be fair. So for some of those teams, I totally get why they might just get nervous on stage. They might just shit the bed. They might just play differently because they're playing someone who they're not comfortable playing. Like, one part about League of Legends, which unfortunately is a negative of how the structure of the circuit works, is you don't get a lot of international experience. So whereas in a game like CSGO, if you were, say, a North American team that was on the rise and you finally qualified for a big CSGO LAN, it would be absolutely fine and expected for you to completely bomb out of that first LAN, do really badly, maybe even play worse against a team that normally you would beat, you know. But the point is, you'd get a few more chances, hopefully, in the next few months, and then you'd get to see how good you really were. I will say, for some of these teams, they're pretty much in almost like a one-and-done situation. It's like they have to be good right now against teams they've never played, against metas they haven't played instantly, and if they're not, they're done. And by the way, they should be done. I don't want to see them in the rest of the tournament, but those are like very difficult circumstances. So I will say I have a little bit of sympathy for some of these teams. Like, it's a tough spot to be in. I mean, for example, if you're the team coming from Brazil and you have to play some team from Vietnam, you have no crossover whatsoever with your team, with the regions, with anything pretty much. So it's going to be hard scouting, playing the game, even getting over the pressure is going to be tough. So with all that said, I agree. The level was fucking terrible in this. Like, I get the feeling that when at this level, so it's international, but it's teams from all the regions. I get the feeling it's more like the teams that make it through are the ones who just don't fuck the whole game up. It's not about you have to make some amazing plays and outplay the other team. Just holding your nerve and having composure is what gets you through this stage, for my money.
Gbay, what do you think about the play-ins?
Yeah, I would agree. I think the most disappointing thing about it was Group A, that everyone was hyping up Group A as the exciting group. I think it was mostly people from like Australia, Oceania, who wanted to see Bombers like do well, and then seeing them get into this group that had Fenerbahce and Fongbu Buffalo, and then feeling like this was the exciting group that some good team was going to come out of. And then seeing just all of the mistakes all over the place was so frustrating. But I actually think that Group B was a little bit more interesting. I think Vega was fairly, I think they were the most entertaining team to watch. Seeing them with like some of their more creative picks and creative strategies, like picking the Heimer away from the Japanese team was pretty exciting. And then seeing them do the thing where he put like the 3 turrets on the blast cone and then hit the blast cone to knock him into the dragon pit. Like, that was still pretty entertaining. So I found some excitement and some enjoyment, a little bit, but it was mostly from Group B rather than Group A, which was pretty disappointing in my opinion.
The funny thing is, Group A, like the other hype teams like Bombers and Fenerbahce, when they didn't make it to the next stage, their players instantly, discarded contracts, or they agreed to go separately. Kirei from Fenerbahce is now on Misfits, and Balkan, the Bombers jungler, is talking to LCK teams and also challenger teams in Korea. Like, they were like, okay, this is our last tournament and we're done. Like, they got out. Like, literally not even a week after they were out of the tournament, like, players are out.
Did you actually think that he was a good player though, Loco? How's he getting LCK offers, Balkan?
I have no idea. Like, just the rumors are he got LCK and challenger offers. That's why he left. So I'm not sure like how.
Everyone right now who's in front of a computer, pull up Gamepedia and go to Balkan's page. I'll spell his name out. It's Balkhan. And if you look at this guy, he looks like not just a generic henchman from an Asian movie. He's like the head of the henchmen. He's the guy where the boss is like, how'd you fucking lose him? And he's like, I don't know, boss. I cannot say. This is what this guy looks like. He's outrageous. Like, he looks like exactly what a jungler should look like just some conniving, sneaky little bastard who's like, his job's just to run around getting unfair 2-versus-1 fights when it should be a fair 1v1. He's just sucker punching fools, isn't he? And going back. Like, I like this guy already. I don't think he's going to play in the LCK. I'll tell you that already. Like, this will probably be where they just give you a trial and then just instantly cut you. But it'd be nice to believe that he could make it all the way back there.
But
I think so.
It's hilarious, like how fast the players got out, or like how done they were with the team. It's like MSI and then we're out.
Well, that's actually, by the way, as a quick aside, like, this won't be a long topic. That's actually one area, believe it or not, where the whole National League scene in Europe might actually be very interesting in how it affects the global scene at this type of stage. Because one thing people are probably aware of is one of the reasons why playing teams got a lot better than they used to be is nowadays playing teams can have an old LCK player like Frozen or Crash, or they could have an old LEC player like Freeze or, in theory, Edward or Diamond Pro. These teams could be on the plane. So as a result, even on playing teams, you could have either someone who used to be good or someone who has a lot of experience. Well, actually, that's one area where I actually expect planes to get way worse going forwards, because now all the top European team players either play in academy and national leagues because you can get a good salary doing that now and it gets way more exposure, or the only region they're really going to be willing to go to at this point in time is just Turkey for the money. So they might get into it through Turkey, but that's it. You're not going to get those players who go to Brazil or whatever. Like, that's not going to happen as much. It will for Koreans because they're obviously going everywhere and those players have no other choice. But I think you'll see a lot more of like the big names will just be in European national league because obviously that doesn't get a spot in the plane. That's the one flaw in the concept, isn't it? Like, I'm sure there's national teams that are better than these playing teams, but they can't play them because it's part of the feeder league for that. But to be fair, to give the counterpoint, there was always LDL teams in China that could probably have done pretty well, LSPL teams. Of course, some of these teams could have been better than these squads. It's not really about just finding the best teams. Anyway, what you were saying before, though, I definitely agree with Gbay. Like, Vega Squadron, if we take aside quality of players, so forget all the players on these teams. If you just look at them as a squad, they played the best actual League of Legends of any team. Like, they had the best draft. They knew what they were doing. They actually played real League of Legends in the games. They didn't just like aggressively push it. Like, the problem is the other teams either knew they had better players and could fuck around a bit, or the bad teams, I don't even know what some of the bad teams did. Like, some of them didn't even give themselves a chance to win this tournament. Whereas the thing about Vega Squadron is they looked like they were a properly coached team. Like, they seemed like a team who actually understood professional League of Legends. I would actually like to see them hopefully make it through as the third team. I think they could actually do some, I don't think they'll beat anyone, but they could at least give someone a proper game, where some of these other teams, they don't even have a chance.
We can talk about Vega after we talk TL Fangbu and Flash Wolf Vega, and then we can talk about Vega versus Fangbu because that's the matchup that hasn't happened yet. What was your thought on TL versus Fangbu Buffalo?
I thought that, I'm from North America, so I would love to see Team Liquid do well. Any criticism that I heap on them is coming from a place of wanting them to be good. But I was super disappointed in in general, I kind of hate the strategy of like just hoping that you don't fuck up enough to lose the game early game and then scale into the late game by picking an Azir and Ryze or whatever. And to see them struggle as much as they did in game one in particular, where they died so frequently in the early game. And honestly, I feel like Fangbu wins game one if their mid laner, Nal, or whoever it is, doesn't just flash forward into 5 people and suicide on LeBlanc. I feel like there's a very real possibility they win game one. And Fangbu was in a lot of positions where they could have won if they just didn't have some of the bigger mistakes that they ended up making. So I feel like it looks pretty dismal for Team Liquid when they're going to be going up against G2 and Invictus Gaming, who are not going to make the same sort of mistakes that Fangbu made. And then SKT kind of plays pretty much the same strategy that Liquid does, except SKT doesn't make those big mistakes in the early game. So I feel like I'm worried about Team Liquid going ahead. But, that being said, C9 looked pretty awful at play-ins at Worlds, and so did G2. I mean, they both had plenty of moments where they looked weak at last Worlds. So hopefully it's just them shaking off rust or whatever. But I feel like there was a lot of mistakes that were not fun to see.
Duncan, all right, let me have it. What are you going to say?
I have to say, considering this was a 3-0 for Team Liquid, what a whack 3-0 this was. Like, on paper, this looks like, Team Liquid just took care of business. They played this lesser team. They were supposed to win. They 3-0'd. Everything must be fine. Let's go into the main tournament. No. After watching this series here, it reminds me of when we were at Worlds last year. One of the reasons I didn't actually think that Cloud9 was going to be that good a team is exactly because I watched the playing series they played against Gambit, and they were actually fucking all over the place in that series. They had all sorts of flaws exposed. I thought, if Gambit does this to them, what the fuck's going to happen when you play a Freak of Freaks or teams like that? Like, these teams have world-class players. It's a similar feeling for me with Team Liquid. Like, coming into this tournament, I think I'm one of the few people who actually thought Team Liquid had an outside shot to do something special. Like, I still think they have very good international level players. They don't have any of those like rookies that flunk. They've got all these great reasons going for them to be a strong team. This series killed all my hype. Like, the first 2 games, the Fangbu Buffalo Is it like they're leading these games? They're the ones making shit happen. They're getting kills wherever they want. They're actually winning skirmishes and team fights. Like, this is ridiculous. Team Liquid with the narrative that he's talking about there, of like, you just pick and scale and you play safe early. Like, if they'd have done that and it had worked, it would have looked so impressive against this team, because this team just threw everything at them early. What PvB did was working. It actually was effective. God only knows what happens if those are G2 players doing this. Like, this will look really brutal, because the point is, Team Liquid's not going to team fight their way back into a game like that. They're not going to have someone just gift them free kills like he was talking about there, like scenarios that you didn't even have to give up your edge in any way. So, like, fair play to the PvB guys. They at least understood what they had to do to have a chance in the game. They had no ability to execute it later in the game, though. Like, at that point in time, I don't even give that much credit to Liquid for coming back. It looked like the others just had no clue what to do once the mid-game arrived, but man, live, this was underwhelming. I've very rarely ever seen a team win a best of 5 3-0 and be this, like, unimpressive.
So TL, before they started, like, Rivington did an interview with Kane, the head coach, and they were talking about, for this tournament, we want to work on...
What's he going to be doing next? Selling the fucking popcorn? I like the way just demoted. He went from, like, Worlds Finals to, like, LCS caster to, like, hey, I'm here outside doing an interview with, who are you, Billy Batson? What the fuck do you think about this kid? Like, this guy's career is just going so bad. He's going to be, like, the producer for this show in a year from now. But, like, are we good to go live, Riv? Yeah, cool. Love you, baby. Shut the fuck up. Turn your mic off.
Wow.
Anyway, that flame to one side. Back, what was he saying in this interview?
So he said in the interview that Kane said they're working on their early game and they're gonna try to play other champions and expand their champ pool. I'm like, what the fuck are you thinking, Team Liquid? That's not who you guys are. Don't try to be a fucking early game team all of a sudden. I do not want to see TL play new champions that they expanded in an early game setting versus IG or G2. That sounds suicidal. I hope he was bullshitting, and I hope he was just saying stuff to say stuff like, we're working on this, but TL's crazy if they stray away from their identity. Like, their identity is a scaling late game team fighting team. I don't think there's anything wrong with that at the moment. Like, TL, that is who you are. You can't change who you are suddenly at MSI. That's how you got to this point.
Yes.
So please don't fucking all of a sudden and change and try to be an early game team.
You know what's tilt-worthy about that as well, Loco? It's like, that is the classic thing that everyone always says about the NA teams, that they go to Worlds and then they find out, shit, it's actually like way difficult competition than we used to. Quick, try and copy a bad version of what they're all doing. It's like, why do you do that? Like, I'm with you, Loco. It's like, there's a famous saying in American sports culture even, like, you've got to go there with the one that got you there. It's like, what got you to this point in time? It was doing all the things you're talking about. So why switch it up now you're at the tournament? No, stick with your strengths. Like, here's the biggest problem Team Liquid has. There is nothing wrong with their playing style objectively. It's a very good playing style. It works really well. Their problem is just who the other teams are. Like, if Origin had won the LEC and Griffin had won Korea and we'd had a bunch of upsets, Jindong Gaming could have won. Team Liquid would be fine with this playing style, be no problem at all. Their problem is teams like G2 have the opposite playing style and supercharged mega level players. Obviously, IG has no weaknesses anywhere. Their problem isn't that they're a bad team. So I agree, Loco. If their mentality is that we got to switch stuff up and do like unusual stuff or completely switch our style up, that's a really worrying sign going on, unless it's just gamesmanship. But to be honest, it's been the way NA teams have done it historically anyway. So I wouldn't be surprised if they do it as well. We try all this like early game picks and shit.
Gbay, thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think that also on top of that, there were still plenty of moments where even when Team Liquid was in their like perfect setup that they wanted, where they had a gold lead and they were in the late game. I think it was game 3 in particular, which was, people are saying that's like the most dominant or most successful game that Liquid had today. There was a moment in game 3 where they had a big gold lead and they were pushing down mid, and then Fong Vu just killed 3 people and didn't lose anyone. And then the only reason that didn't
they entered up Baron.
They had to. I feel like they kind of had to go for that Baron because they were down pretty substantially at that point. But to see like that big of a mistake, that was like 20 minutes or 25 minutes when Liquid was supposed to just win at that point, and then to see them make that big of a mistake with their win condition and their play style against an emerging region team, a wildcard team, that really scared me. I mean, that's the moment where I was like, okay, maybe this isn't even just them shaking off rust or whatever you want to, whatever excuse you want to make. Maybe they still do have like some really big flaws that it's going to be a repeat of last year and the year before with NA teams and MSI getting knocked out in groups.
One thing I also am starting to worry for TL is, I think support meta is shifting a little bit with people playing a little bit more Nautilus. Galio, Tahm Kench, and Braum is still the center of it. But Core JJ looks so much worse when he's not on Braum and Kench. And also overall as a team, they look much worse when Core JJ isn't on Braum and Kench. And Fengbu Buffalo knew that very well about Team Liquid. They banned Kench all 3 games. They only let them have Braum when they can take Galio into it. So that's something that the other teams in not the play-in but in the group stages are going to know about TL. Hey, this is a team that we can make them very uncomfortable with these bans. What?
By the way, you can talk whenever you want, Gbay. Like, you don't have to specifically be asked to speak or anything, just in case Loco didn't explain that.
Yeah, that's fine. I mean, I think that, to be honest, that was something I feel like we saw a lot throughout the games today in particular, where not to like jump the gun or whatever, but I feel like Vega versus Flash Wolves, there were also moments where, like, if they could just ban Tahm Kench and stop that from fucking up their amazing bot lane crazy strategies, then, you know, they could have gotten back into that series. And yeah, I mean, I feel like once we get into groups and then start seeing more games and more bans come out, I'm curious to see how the teams hold up.
By the way, just as an aside, since we're going to obviously leave the Fengbu topic to one side now, since their part of the tournament is almost done until we get to the Flash Wolves, the Vega match that they have for the 3rd match. I will say, I don't know why, but these teams from the Vietnam region, remember, that's where Gigamite Marines was from last year, which is actually the whole reason this Fengbu team ended up being in Worlds as a seed. They didn't have to go through play-ins because Gigabyte Marines made MSI last year. So one of the mad things is, if you look at these 2 teams they've had now, these teams at least do what I would actually love. Well, put it this way, I know he's not around in League anymore, but Monty would love the approach of these teams, because one thing he hates as well, a pet peeve of his, is if you're playing a team that you know is much, much better than you. Like, it's not like they're just like the best team in their region and you're the 3rd best team. No, they're like the best in a region that everyone would be better than anyone in your region. If someone's that far ahead of you, most times you don't want to actually play your style like we recommended Team Liquid does. We say Team Liquid should because they're a very good team already. You actually want to play a style that just increases your variance in the match in terms of chance to win. Like, you want to make it an unusual type of game. You want to go for a 1-punch knockout. You want to try something unusual. Yeah. And I've got to say, both these teams from the Vietnam region, so Gigabyte Marines, everyone knows, did some amazing shit to give themselves even chances to win games against TSM. And obviously later on it was Fnatic and Immortals at Worlds that year. Then you come to the last Worlds with this Fengbu team. They won games against G2, Flash Wolves. These are the top level teams. And now here, they at least gave themselves chances in a best of 5 that they had no business having a chance winning. Like, to even get this far, I got to give them credit. They at least gave themselves a chance. It didn't work out. This was a much better team, but I like the mentality. It's like, the difference is they're not going to win playing default style League of Legends and just playing the global meta. They're not going to win the series. So at least give yourself a chance to pop off. At least try something unusual. I think I'll give credit to whoever the coaching staff of these 2 different teams from Vietnam are, because for whatever reason, they've got spunk. I'll give them that. They've got something going for them.
Oh, what is it? So I tweeted that macro was really a big problem from Fengbu Buffalo, and there were several people, LS one of them, where they thought macro was fine. Actually, the mechanical Fengbu Buffalo was the bigger problem. So I kind of want to talk about that. I think macro for them was the biggest problem, because even when they won fights, they didn't know how they had to reset or how they had to allocate on the map. Like the example that Gbay brought up, even when they destroyed TL 3-0, instead of resetting and setting up for Baron, they went to rush Baron when they didn't have damage and when they didn't have armor for anyone to tank, so they had no idea what to do. So I think even if they won more fights versus TL or played better mechanically, this is a team I don't see coming out ahead versus the better teams, because they just don't know how to allocate lanes. They don't know what to do when they get a lead in terms of like where players are positioned. So yes, micro is a bit problematic, but even when they win fights, they don't know how to transition their lead. Like, how is this team going to ever win?
Well, I feel like when people are saying that, what they're really saying is like, if they, because it's kind of tough to say that their macro was super bad, because most of the bad decisions are like the bad results that they had in some of their macro with decision making with going to Baron and stuff, was just when they were behind. I mean, most of their kills and everything was in like the hyper early game where they didn't have too many options to go and take a Baron or whatever. I feel like later on in the game, like the maybe questionable macro decisions were more a product of like the situation they were in, whereas it was very clear like how many skill shots and very like basic eye hurting mistakes that they ended up making in the in the early game. And if they were to just fix some of those, they already had a lead in game 1 and game 2 at least. If they were to just fix some of those, I feel like they could have middling mediocre macro decision, just very basic understanding of, okay, we killed all 5 of them, let's go to Baron or Dragon or whatever, and they would have been fine, because they were very close to just destroying Team Liquid in a lot of circumstances there.
Like, put it this way, to tie into what I said before, because they knew they had to go balls to the wall, that's how they even created half of these early game kills. Like, these weren't even logical times to be able to do something. Like, I'm sure Team Liquid had no expectation of what was going to happen in this match. I bet they had no clue what it was going to be. Like, if you were a team from LCS watching this match, you were like, why weren't we doing any of that shit? Like, why we just sat around letting Team Liquid scale for time and then going, oh, let's try and beat them in a team fight? Like, it's not going to happen if you like anyone except Cloud9 and TSM pretty much. So, like, yeah, it didn't work. They don't have a good enough team. Like, here's the thing. If you don't have good enough players and your team isn't very good, you have no reason to win the game. So for me, it was never about whether they're going to win the series. It's could they make it close, and they actually did reasonably. So going forwards, because we'll leave what Team Liquid will do in the main tournament till later, let's talk about the other matchup then. So this was the Flash Wolves against Vega Squadron match. Now, again, for people who are forgetting, Flash Wolves obviously playing in a play-in circumstances. We're used to them being one of the major regions, but they didn't do very well at Worlds or whatever it was. So they're now coming through this stage, right? Even though Flash Wolves is a very different team to the one everyone remembers. They don't have Maple and Sword Art and Carcer, all these players you remember. They basically only have Betty or whatever his name is. That's it. That remains in the squad. They still are the best team from their region. They still are a dominant team from their region. It was expected to me that they would win here overall. But I actually did think that this was an interesting matchup, the Vega one. So what did you think, Loco?
I thought Vega picking up a game was so strange. Like, they picked Vayne mid versus Silas, and you only pick Vayne mid. Like, when people were picking Vayne mid, it was versus like Sejuani and a Galio mid, and you would run cleanse. And the problem with running Vayne mid is, while you're very good in the lane, you have no wave clear and you're so vulnerable when people gank you. This guy ran fucking teleport flash Vayne mid versus a Silas and Rek'Sai and got away with it. So I thought it was just incredible, like how they were able to get away with running that Vayne and not get punished at all, and the Vayne carried. So game 1 was kind of a fluke, and after that, just Flash Wolf were the better team. They played to side lanes properly and they won. So I am not as excited about Vega Squadron as you guys. Maybe it's because I didn't watch Group B, but from what I saw of them in the best of 5 versus Flash Wolves, they weren't very impressive. They seemed gimmicky more so than versatile.
Yeah, but that is what also happens if you get put, like, let's be real, Loco. Like, Flash Wolves is the best team of all the 8 teams here by a large margin.
You think they're better than TL by a large margin?
No, I mean in the actual planes.
Okay.
Yeah, the teams coming out of the planes. Like, obviously, Flash Wolves has an insane experience and champions, all the rest of it. Like, that should be where Vega Squadron looks worst.
Okay.
See, I feel like Vega was a lot better. I felt like they approached the series a lot better, but then their inexperience really I felt like it was almost mental mistakes that really messed up the series for them, because in the first series they were looking pretty solid, matching Flash Wolves for like the first 30 minutes of that game, or however long it ended up going. For the first 2/3 of the game, they looked pretty decisive. They had a weird, strange strategy. They seemed to catch Flash Wolves off guard, sending the Karthus spot in Vayne mid, and then it was like they kind of just froze a little bit and then just A-ramped for like 10 minutes, where it was like they just kind of got caught up in the moment and didn't know what to do. There was a moment where Flash Wolves had like 2 TPs that they wasted because they thought they were doing Baron, or they didn't have vision on it. They weren't doing Baron. And I think the caster said, all Vega has to do now is clear out vision, start the Baron, either 5v4 at Baron or take the Baron for free. And it took them forever to close out that game. And then in the next game, they kind of had a bit of a weird strategy and it didn't work nearly as well. They kind of really didn't. I feel like they made a huge mistake leaving Tonken Tom Kench Ezreal open before picking Kha'Zix, and then they really messed up there. And then in game 3, it was like they were just shocked. Okay, our strategies aren't working. Just play standard, which isn't what they do at all. And they got steamrolled playing standard. But then game 4, they brought it back a little bit. Okay, that clearly wasn't our style. Let's try and do a little something. And then they again had a little bit more success with like the Morgana 80 carry, but then of course, again, leaving I felt like the Tom Kench just ruined them. Games
why pick Shen Morg into Kench? Like, if they have a Kench running a cleanse, like, why the fuck are you picking Morg and Shen? It was stupid.
And a lot of their strategies seem to focus around putting their AD carry on different, like, I think he played Varus once in groups, but other than that, he's played Heimerdinger, he's played Morgana, he's played Karthus, and to just like let the enemy bot lane get away from cheesy strategies with like the ultimate anti-cheese of Tom Kench, not first picking that yourself or banning it, was really shocking to me. And that really frustrated me because I felt like that they were the most, I liked their strategies the most, or like how they approached the series, saying that, you know, they're not going to just try and do the same strategies that everyone else in the world is, because they know they can't beat everybody else by doing that. So they tried to play their own game, and it worked for a little bit, but then they just kind of threw it away and then got a little bit caught out, where I felt like it was mental mistakes just as much as anything.
Yeah, basically, Vega in draft is what Feng Vu was in the early game in actual matches. Like, they knew they wouldn't win the game if they just did the traditional style everyone does at the moment. That was never, like, they were obviously not going to win a best of 5 against the Flash Wolves if they did all the meta picks and drafts. Like, first of all, you also give an extra advantage to the better team there, because they are going to be playing against comps they already play against in a practice for. So actually, even though they couldn't pull it off, I think even winning one game out of this series was respectable for Vega Squadron. And the fashion they did it in, with the drafts that they were willing to actually be ballsy enough to go for, respect. Like, they don't have good enough players that they were ever going to win this series. That's just like an unrealistic expectation. They don't have anywhere close to the experience of the Flash Wolves core. But fair enough, they gave themselves the chance to win. They won a game. That's pretty good in itself. I don't think they're a very good team overall. I think personally, I'll give you a spoiler, I think the Feng Vu team will actually beat them. But I thought overall it made for a vaguely entertaining series where it could have been another boring 3-0. Well, I'll go ahead and tell everyone another spoiler. I'll just reiterate, I don't give a fuck about playing teams. Like, I'm doing this show just because Loco, for some bizarre reason, wants to. Like, if I had the option to just do a show with like some fuck it, just take one of those like streamer girls that is one of his mates. We could just throw her in here. We'll start talking shit on her. I think that'd be a better episode.
Do you want to do that?
What if Loco gets to do?
We'll bring on, what is it?
You want to do some variety people?
Yeah, we'll do streamer girls next time. I think Gbay is a great guest, but if you want, we'll do streamer girls too.
I think that actually that sort of accidental, no context phrase from Loco might have been what got him fired in the past.
What? That Gbay is great, but oh my god.
No, you just go and listen. Yeah, sure, we'll do streamer girls later, but for now we got to play this game. Anyway, back to the show, back to the MSI.
Okay.
Editor, cut that part. Oh no, let me check. He's already been fired from every team, none one. Right, leave it in then. Fuck it. This point in time, just ride with it. Make it part of your brand. So here's the thing, Loco. I'll never fire you. I'm the one person in your life, mate.
Thanks.
We can go through thick and thin. Actually, that's a lie. If you piss me off, I'll just stop doing the show. You already saw that. So, all right, that's not even true. I might fire you one day, but you're not actually my employees. Technically, I can't fire. I can just choose not to associate with you, like a lot of people in League of Legends. Anyway, you see where I'm going with this. You see, everything can be flipped into another burn. You have to understand that. I've got like sort of a whole situation going here. So, okay, let's get back into this then. Loco, what do you think of Vega Squadron?
I want to do a hashtag listen Loco walkout. That's what I want to do. Okay, for Vega Squadron, I think they're very messy. I think they have a lot of different strategies, but when you don't have a solid basis and you do a lot of these strategies, it can be cute and it can be gimmicky more so than creative and give you an edge. And I think it's getting to the point where it's getting cute and gimmicky and not giving them an edge.
Like they went too far with it? In what sense?
They do
like what would have been a reasonable compromise to do, so you know, they have a bit crazy but not too far.
They have so much variety with it. When you have so much variety with like the different things you do, Heimer bot lane, Karthus bot lane, Vayne mid, Morgana bot lane, like then you stop having mastery over these kind of strategies.
Yes. Your execution isn't going to be as
flawless. And they just become one-time gimmicks that you kind of throw on the wall and you hope something sticks, and that's how I feel about it. So yeah, I mean, I don't feel great about it. And like, if we're talking about Fongbu versus Vegas, I think Fongbu will be better. I think Fongbu's solid enough where their fundamentals are good enough where they're not gonna get like shocked by all these like strategies that Vegas is doing.
Yeah, well, I think Vega could. I feel like if Vega gets a composition that they want, that they could beat Fongvu. Like if they're comfortable enough on their champions to be able to deal with Fongvu's early aggression, then they would be able to win. But I don't think Fongvu is. I feel like Karthus is just going to be banned every game, and I don't know. I mean, we haven't seen Vega do anything else other than the Karthus bot lane for the most part that they've seemed like so incredibly strong and comfortable on that. I feel like they could probably take a game off Fongvu, and if they do get their champions, or if they have some strategy or something that we haven't seen yet, that I feel like they could totally beat Fongvu, because Fongvu still has plenty of mistakes and issues with their own gameplay. If Vega could out macro them in a late game, but yeah, I feel like they probably won't get the champions that they need at this point after showing so much throughout the play-ins already.
Yeah, the difference is as well, if Fongvu get the leads they did against Team Liquid, they're not going to lose to Vega Squadron 3 games out of 5 doing that. Like, that will be enough to win the game. Like, that's the craziest part about that whole Team Liquid series, is on the one hand, fair play, they still won, but you should not be able to win when you get that far behind. If you get repeatedly behind like that in those situations, you should be losing some of these games, of course. I will say, though, regardless, obviously, whichever of these teams gets out, it's a playing team. It's not supposed to do well in the main event, whoever gets there. But just for stylistic matchup, please give me the Fongvu team. That'll be way more exciting to watch. Like, dude, I actually would legitimately like to watch them play against SK Telecom Loco. Who wouldn't? That's exactly the sort of team which, listen, they're not going to beat SK Telecom, but they could give them a little surprise, give them a little shock where they don't think, oh, it's going to be easy just playing some stupid team, and then there you go. Could happen.
I definitely do think they are the better team, and I do want to see them in the tournament also, and they're a good check mark. Like, for if you play sloppy enough, then you will get punished, and it gives all the teams there, okay, we can't be sloppy, like we have to watch out for this team. And I do think they're not going to end with 0 wins if they do make the main stage. I think if Fongbu Buffalo makes the main stage, they'll get 1 at the very least, maybe 2 games.
If Fongbu makes the main stage, I bet you they beat Team Liquid once, and then that's how Team Liquid gets knocked out of groups.
That's like the one way. No, what would have to happen logically? I'll tell you the real NA storyline, because the key thing I know about NA storylines in League of Legends is it can't just be like that old Worlds where they went 0-10 that one week in Season 5 Worlds, right? That's too blunt a sort of exclamation mark that like it was terrible and you had no chance. The way it has to happen for NA is always like this. You have to get this close to maybe making it. So what you'll need is this, right? Team Liquid starts badly. They lose the first 2 games to whoever it is, right? But then, in the middle part, shit gets popping. They even beat SK Telecom in 1 game. You start going, oh my God, is it possible? Can they run it back? They beat the right teams, right? And they're going to be on for a tiebreaker to get out the group. But then the last game is like an easy one. They just have to beat Fongvu, and then they get the tiebreaker. And then they get kaboomed like Alliance. And they lose that game. Oh, why? Fongvu, why? And then everyone brings up all the memes about Vietnam beating America again or whatever. Like, all the old shit comes in. It becomes a massive meme gumbo of all shit. And then basically Double Lift and Core GG have to drink that for the next 6 months because they failed again. Like, you failed.
All right, before we drop MSI, let's talk about TL and MSI. Like, are you guys fucking scared for TL? How do you guys feel for TL?
Oh, absolutely. I feel like Team Liquid is just TSM 2.0 at this point. I mean, it was like 2 years ago, TSM went 4-6 in groups, lost a tiebreaker to get knocked out of the main event. Then last year, Team Liquid goes 4-6 in groups, loses a tiebreaker to get knocked out of the main event. Both of these teams have had so much success and domination in NALCS or LCS now, but that doesn't mean anything. Like CLGs of the past and Cloud9s of the past have always been the teams that have succeeded internationally, and TSM and now Team Liquid are the ones that always choke. So, I mean, I would love if they didn't this time, but I don't think I've seen anything that's like got me confident that this is going to be the time that they don't just let history repeat itself for the millionth time.
Yeah, my main concerns are just stuff I've seen at this tournament already, like the series against Fongvu, like you're saying this interview with Kane, basically implying like we're going to try different picks and different stuff we haven't done before. That's more worrying to me than anything I saw in LCS. Like what I saw in LCS, I told you, I was quietly optimistic that they might be able to do something. And the main reason why is because unlike past years, the gap between the major regions is way smaller. That's why Papa Smithy wasn't crazy by saying they might have like a 10% chance to win the whole tournament. That's not that crazy. There's only 3 other big teams you basically have to beat, and then you win the tournament. So if you get the right matchup against this guy and you beat him, and then the other team that's the better of the two beats you in the final, you can win. It's possible. It's not crazy. I know in League it doesn't happen often that you get like a really big outsider win the international tournament. So people think it's not supposed to happen, but it happens in every other esports game. So the big problem I have is, if you look at a lot of the factors going in Team Liquid's favour, they have tons of great factors. Like, for example, if you want to look man for man, this might be the best lineup any NA region team has ever sent to an international tournament. Look at the fucking players they have. Doublelift, Jensen, Impact, Smithy, Kodja. Where's the weak spot? The only weak spot is basically supposed to be obviously Impact, because everyone's like, he doesn't play carries, which he sort of doesn't. I mean, he showed us that in the final of LCS. But aside from that, and even then, he's still considered a good player. Everyone else on the team is legit. Smithy got to be one of the best junglers in the West. Jensen, mad experience internationally, been out of groups many times. Doublelift is absolutely one of the best Western players to this day and always was. Cordier J, I think we've argued on this show successfully in the past. Forget Westerners. This guy's as good still as the Koreans. He's literally one of the... If you put him on Galio or whatever, he's probably like the best support in the world. Put him on Tom Kench or something. He's fantastic. Yeah, it's a bit more limited. But see what I mean? Like, roster-wise, personnel-wise, what a fucking great set of players to send. So it's not impossible. The problem they have is, like... I always think you should judge teams in terms of actual matches. You look at the matchup. You look, how do these two styles fit together? How do my strengths go against your strength? And that's their big problem. Like I said, the teams that are going to MSI, generally, G2 and IG have exactly the toolkit to destroy TL in the early game. SK Telecom, as Papa Smithy pointed out, they play late game in Korea because they're playing against Koreans, mate. Like, they're not. They could play early game and destroy Team Liquid. Of course they could. They could flex into that tomorrow. Look at the players they have in their team. It's up to them if they choose a draft that's a Lissandra comp that goes to the end of the game. So the big problem TL has is, where do they get an edge over any of these 3 teams? They don't really have one, but the only edge they can get is that Mickey X does turn up like fucking Luke after he's had his hand chopped off at the end of fucking Empire Strikes Back, like, Leia! If he turns up like that, and then they have fucking Promiscue playing, yeah, you could get a win through bot lane. There you go. But even then, that won't be enough, because I can tell you already, if that happens, if they have to play Promiscue, G2's just going to go full Fongvu Buffalo. They're going to crank the wackiness up to 11, and they're going to do all those ridiculous lane swaps and put role swaps in there and have comps that don't make any sense. They'll just go that route to get the edge. So, personally, I think Team Liquid's just in a real bad spot, and it's not their fault. Just happens to be the meta and the current state of who else qualified. So I don't blame them personally if they don't go deep. They should still be top 4, obviously, but it's going to be tough to win this one.
Yeah, I mean, agree with all the things you guys said. A lot of things were people that were hopeful about was, oh, Ornn got buffed. Oh, Nautilus got buffed. Maybe it'll be a tank meta topside. I don't see a lot of Ornn. I don't see a lot of Nautilus. If anything, it's Nautilus support or Nautilus mid. So the meta seems to be exactly what it is. And TL doesn't play crucial champions. Like, they don't play Akali. They play some Akali, but not really. They don't play Irelia. They're not that well versed on Rise. There's these mega carry champions that are really important, and TL doesn't really play them well. And we saw them struggle versus Fongbu Buffalo. That's a huge warning sign. If you're gonna struggle versus Fongbu Buffalo, if you give that kind of lead to IG, to SKT, to G2, they will eat you alive. Like, if they're given any kind of those chances, they will end the game on you. You are fucking lucky Fongbu Buffalo had no idea what to do with their lead. So I am incredibly scared for TL. The only thing I can really count on is G2 and Cloud9 didn't do that well in play-ins last Worlds, and then they did well later on in the main stage event. So maybe this is TL shaving off the rust. Maybe this is TL like just starting out the tournament slow, but realistically, I'm so fucking scared, and the only thing I can count on is they'll do better, they'll improve, and that's not a lot of faith or something for me to lean on.
By the way, that's obviously an absolutely accurate thing to say. Like, you can't judge them only on the first match we saw. Sure, like, for example, for all we know, maybe that's like the mad wake-up call that makes them realise, like, fuck, what were we thinking? Go back to stuff that worked before, or change up picks in that sense, like the things that actually work. Yeah, that might be the case. It's just at the moment I can only go off what I've seen. So until I see them actually do something good, I can't give them credit.
It's like when Thorin says he'll do something, or like he'll be nicer to me. Like, he can say it, but I don't really believe it until I really see it. So TL they'll say they'll improve, they'll be better in the main stage, but until I see it, I'm not going to believe it.
I would never say that, though. That's the thing. As I said in my literal award-winning speech while collecting Esports Journalist of the Year for the esports industry,
Humble brag.
It is better to be thought arrogant than a liar.
Okay.
There you go. That's what I said. That was my message to the children of the world.
I don't know if you should be speaking to children of the world. I'm not sure if you're the main spokesperson I would pick.
Listen, mate, at least I'm allowed within 10 feet of the school gates.
Oh my God.
Anyway, by the way, there's so many tangential jokes which even work in our community that I can't do there because whatever. Some people have had a hard enough time as it is,
I live across from a school, right? I
bet you fucking do. I bet you love watching the stars as well, don't you? You have a telescope out there, you fuck, don't you? Yeah. Anyway, I bet it was really awkward when you were like legally obliged to go and knock on all those doors when you moved into the neighborhood. Anyway, let's pull this back because if we want to talk about shitting all over kids, we've got MSI going on right now, haven't we? The literal. Anyway, bring it back, Loco. Okay. Bring it back because you haven't given your thoughts aside from roughly. Like, let's be real. Do you think there's actually any team like who would you pick of the teams at MSI? Do you think Team Loco can beat any of them?
I think G2, like you mentioned, they could be better through bot lane. And one other team I actually think that you guys might probably differ on is SKT, because SKT and TL play very, very similar styles, where TL and SKT both come down at its core. It's about team fighting. So you can say, well, then the better team fighting team will always win. But if TL gets like the right champions and they're the scaling team, there's a way that they can win that too. Sure. Just through scaling and being the better late game team. Because that is one area where at least I can count on TL to be world class, which is team fighting around the Fed AD carry. That is one area.
I will point out though, and this is a problem, two things here. One, that is exactly what Team Liquid wasn't doing in those first games in the final. It's like they wouldn't play around double lift, so that's already a worry. And then the second one, and this sounds like a narrative. I know people get mad when you just use like storylines. This is a real thing I have observed. I even asked Double Lift about him when I did my reflections with him earlier this year, which was one of Double Lift's problems in his career is, right, the player I would give the analogy to here is, you know who he is, Loco. You know the StarCraft 2 player, Idra. Mm-hmm. But one of the things this guy was very famous for is because he'd actually gone and lived with Koreans in StarCraft Brood War in one of their team houses. He was on CG Entis. When he was on that team, he had that mentality of like, right, I'm a better player than you, so I'm supposed to beat you in this game. You're a worse player than this guy's a better player than me, so I'm supposed to lose to him. And his whole worldview was that if someone's better than you, like comprehensively, they're overall a better player, that it's fine to lose to them because you should lose that match. Right? Doublelift has some of that in his character for some bizarre reason, where if he knows that he's playing Uzi, Deft, someone who he considers in his brain, that guy is better than me. For some reason, he does sort of like, he plays with too much respect, in my opinion. And he actually plays as though like, better be careful here. Whereas like, that's, again, as I alluded to with the earlier conversation about the wildcard teams, that's not what you want to do when you play the absolute best person. So if you look at SK Telecom, that's why I would have rather Griffin went. Because look at SK Telecom's bot lane. The player everyone considers the best AD carry in the world, Teddy, and Matter, who has literally done exactly what I just described to Doublelift every 2 years, it feels like. Every couple of years, he plays against Matter, he goes, oh shit, it's fucking Matter, what am I, oh bloody hell, I've inted the kill, haven't I? And then it always goes at. So I'm just worried that like, that's the one matchup I agree, on paper, TL should have a shot there, but that's the one where I would bet Doublelift psychs himself out before that one. It's just my observation from the sidelines.
And don't get me wrong, I don't think TL's favorite versus IGG2 or SKT.
Of course.
But there's an off chance. There is an off chance.
Yeah.
I think IG and a fully powered G2 is nightmare matchup for them. I think those are teams like they have no shots against, like where they can play topside like carry versus carry or carry versus tank and really abuse.
I don't know if I could see Team Liquid beating SKT, because I feel like right now SKT's biggest weakness is actually Khan. I mean, Khan, he was getting solo killed by Rascal in their series against Kingzone. He has looked like the biggest weak link on that team for the most part. Teddy's looking amazing. Faker is Faker. But I don't think that Impact, or I don't think Team Liquid can play around the top side to like do anything to like substantially hurt SKT and then outplay them in that kind of, you know, scale the late game play style.
Well, they have to match them in team fight, and that is Team Liquid's strength, but it is team fighting versus the best team fighting team in the world, where I think TL has like a shot at arguably one of the best team fighting teams. I think SKT is the best team fighting team in the world, so it is hard to match. But if you're not going to give them credit for the team fighting, like, then where does TL really stand a shot? Then realistically, then TL really doesn't have a shot versus anyone.
It also sucks as well if you just want to look at like how it could, because obviously there's many other teams could have won their region and been representing their team in region instead of the teams Team Liquid's facing now. They also got really unlucky in that you at least want in the matchup you to have edges in lanes or positions. Like you want it to be like I'm saying with G2, like, oh, at least we have the better bot lane. Okay, there's one small edge you have. Well, one of the other things that is a killer for me about the teams that went to MSI is look at the jungle talent. The jungle talent is monstrous in these teams. So if you'd have sent Origin, okay, I think Cold's a good jungler, but I think Smithy's a better jungler. If you'd have sent Jingdong, I'll immediately go ahead and say I'll give Smithy the edge there, even though they actually have a pretty good jungler. But at the same time, he's not Smithy. He's not that level of experience. He's not that level of control over the game. The problem is you look at the players they sent. Mate, Ning is going to style all over Team Liquid. The guy loves playing teams like that. You go elsewhere, Clid is a really fucking strong individual jungler. He's not the type that Smithy wants to be playing against. Obviously, Yankos in Europe is literally, his nickname is the First Blood King. This guy gets action going early. Like, of all the players you could have picked, you want jungle to be one of the strengths for Team Liquid if you want them to have a chance to get to that late game and to then win those team fights. You've got to have Smithy activated. You saw in the LCS final the night and day difference between when Smithy was on his game and he was playing well and when he was playing like shit. He was nonsense in the first two games. He took over those last few games. He's the main reason they won the title for Harmony. So, like, that's the other part. Again, it ain't Team Liquid's fault, but it just so happens the teams that they're now matched up with, these aren't the teams they want to be playing. Like, there could have been so many better options if the finals domestically had gone differently, or, you know, in China, I mean, it could have been very different. There was, what, 5 or 6 teams could have won there. So, unfortunately, this just is not their one. If they do it, by the way, it'll make it even more hype. Let's put it that way, though. That's the reason why I actually am glad, in a way, that all the factors are against them. Because if they, put it this way, if they even made, just forget winning the tournament, that's a bit unrealistic. If they made the final, that'd be fucking amazing. Imagine crazy. Them making the final. From the context of this tournament, that would be so unexpected. It'd be such a sick storyline.
That'd be crazy. I cannot see TL making finals. Like, I guess they only have to beat one team in a best of 5. That's actually not that crazy. They have to beat.
It's not impossible. No, it's not. It's not like it's like it's not like a 1% chance. But that way, it is like that. It's like perhaps I'd say a chance of making the final. It's like a 10%, 20% chance, depending on who they play.
They only have to win one best of 5 versus, let's say, SKT or a G2 or an IG. So what's their percentage of winning a best of 5? Like 10%, 15%?
Plus, you have to realize. I'll give you another way that they could do it. Is this because the parity is so shrunk between all these teams? This isn't like past years where you were like, right, the Korean team wins every set of games. What, does the Chinese team drop 1 game, 2 games? No, this time around, you could have a scenario where the top 4 seeds for the playoffs are really mixed up. Because, for example, maybe G2 and IG beats SK Telecom, but in the best of 1 stage. And therefore, like, the total tiebreakers and the records are all mixed up. You could absolutely have that happen as well. So in that scenario, if you get the right opponent, it's not impossible. I mean, for a start off, yes, this would have to be a very, very weird group stage. But if you get the Flash Wolves, you've got a chance there, haven't you? I don't really conceivably know of any possible group stage permutation that makes either Team Liquid or Flash Wolves able to play each other. I'm just saying, if enough of the other teams beat each other, you can get a scenario like that.
All right.
Like, there's a world for sure where IG beats SK Telecom twice, and already SK Telecom has to win certain games against other people. That can happen.
All right. Let's move on from MSI and let's talk about. Do you want to do the news stuff first, or do you want to do Gbay stuff first?
Let's do Gbay stuff. Let's get us, before everyone tunes out.
Yeah. Gbay, can you give us a rundown on your super team video, and then let's have a talk about that topic.
Yeah, what was the premise of this video?
So anyway, the premise of the video was a little bit following the discussion around Team Liquid being a super team and how virtually every team in North America is kind of trying to build super teams. And it kind of had two main focuses on the video. Number one, that personally speaking, I really hate super teams for a couple of reasons. Like throughout all sports, I make, I make a lot of parallels to Kevin Durant joining the Golden State Warriors, and that with Jensen joining Team Liquid. And super teams are, I kind of postulate that super teams are frustrating and kind of boring in sports. Firstly, because, they obviously kind of kill parity. There's just one team that's winning championships for 3 straight years, and you know what's going to happen before it happens. But especially in League of Legends, it's frustrating because they don't really work. It's one thing if Bayern Munich is going to go and steal all of Dortmund's talent to go and then win a Champions League for Germany, but for them to go and then still get knocked out in the quarterfinals every year or semifinals or whatever, like that's the thing that really makes it frustrating. And I feel like it's kind of similar in North America right now, where there's a lot of teams that are just shunning any sort of potential talent. That there's a lot of like young talent that you could get. I remember Licorice, he was stuck in the NA Challenger scene for like 2 years playing for E United, I think it was, where he looked so much better than all the other talent in NA Challenger, but I mean, teams weren't taking a chance on him. He wasn't in LCS for some reason, and there's a lot of young talent that I feel like could be developed into good players that teams aren't taking a chance on, and that they're just building all these super teams that are bound to fail, especially because like one of the exciting things about League of Legends is that it's one of the few team-oriented sports or esports where you can have a circumstance of like 5 players who aren't really that good individually, but then they go and become a great championship team. And I think Griffin is the best example of that right now. That Tarzan is, he's a great jungler, but other than that, you could maybe say Chovy, who's certainly not the best mid in the world right now, but other than that, like they have a lot of players that they almost aren't the kind of players you would want to go out and try and sign in free agency. They're all individually like pretty good, but Griffin together are way better than the sum of their parts. And it's such a shame to see Western teams, but especially in North America, just consistently try and match all these players that they've kind of defined as the best players, rather than trying to like get some amount of synergy together and create some sort of like good team other than signing some perfect roster of a super team. That's kind of the premise of the video.
Okay. Oh, there's so much stuff we can go on here, Loco. So here's a couple of points. So first of all, on the angle of super teams, I'd hate having to do it, but I have to do it, Loco, because I know what plebs are like. I will again, for the millionth time, reiterate the concept of a super team, because I know already that a lot of idiots don't understand this. Idiots think a super team is where your team just has the 5 best players for their roles. No, a super team is when you create the team, you are picking players who are supposed to be some of the best at their roles. That's why it's a super team. By the way, a super team even comes from like, there used to be like the Super Friends, where it was like a fucking Batman and Superman and Flash. The idea is it's when you put the team together, it's super. It doesn't mean that it ends up being very good. That's a separate condition, because as Gbay points out, most super teams in history actually don't work in League of Legends. In League of Legends specifically, it doesn't seem to work. I'll also say in my other main game, Counter-Strike, it also doesn't tend to typically work. And I actually think the reason it doesn't work is the same in both games. And there's 2 factors at play. One is actually the parity angle that he brought up, which is when you make a super team, odds are you've depleted the best players from that region. So whoever has the second and third best team probably doesn't have the same player strength as you. So one problem that immediately happens there is you don't have very good practice to play against, because you're playing against people who are worse than you. So maybe you are very dominant in your region, like some of the TSM teams has been, like Team Liquid was overall in the last few splits. But the problem is you're not going to get way better naturally because you're already dominating your region. You don't have that great reason to get better. In fact, you could even argue you might win for the wrong reasons because you might sometimes win on player strength. Like this guy, our top laner beats their top laner. We have a better bot lane. You didn't even win because you were necessarily that much a better team. You just at the end of it all had the extra bonus of better players. And then the second factor is, and this is the reason why I think in both Counter-Strike and League of Legends, it doesn't work to make super teams, is even though in theory there are star players and like world's best players at a role who could be like the sacrificial lamb and could be the guy who gives up something to the rest of their team, that is a very, very small Venn diagram of like the circle of like world's best players and then the circle of like can adapt and be the bitch role. The Venn diagram on that is like this. It's like two people or something. So the idea that you're going to get like the best AD carry and tell him, like they actually did to Teddy and
be a bitch, like, and then he did.
You just chill out and let us win the game, and you're just going to like every now and then get to have a good game. Like that's so hard to convince someone of. So the reason why triple threat teams in League of Legends, forget even the other roles, the reason why just having the best laner in each lane doesn't work is because there's no natural hierarchy. You actually now have to decide what it is. So in theory, if you had the best coaches and the best mentality in the world, yeah, it would be the best team. But actually, it's a good thing in normal teams that like, okay, our mid lane and AD, I'll give you an example, okay? So the team I've been talking about the whole split on LCS is obviously Golden Guardians, right? The great thing about Golden Guardians is anyone can look at this team and understand how they could get success. Get Haunter onto a comfort champion, give Froggen a control mage in mid, hopefully give Contracts a jungler he can do something on. There you go, that's it. As long as you got those conditions set, you know Golden Guardians can win some games. Now, if you had it where the coach came in and he had no direction, every lane could be the best lane. Every player could be the best player. Every player has a whole bunch of champions. Does he go with the global meta thinking?
That's what they did, and they failed initially.
Yeah.
They were like 0-4. Yeah.
That tends to be the typical approach people take. You're right. They tend to just think, well, I can do anything. And the problem is that in itself can be limiting because now, you can do anything. There's no natural suggestion. One thing I like about esports games is the game itself, by the strength of your personnel, almost tells you how to play the game and how to beat that team and what to do to neutralize them. Like when we were speculating which lane can you get a strength through. These things actually help even your team. Now like if you're playing on a TSM team with Bjergsen, you're not going to tell the mid laner, oh, give me all the resources top lane, because he's Bjergsen and you're not. That's a good thing for the team environment, believe it or not. Because that way Bjergsen doesn't have to be cocky and tell you, give me the fucking ball and get out of my face, like Michael Jordan used to tell his teammates. He doesn't have to tell him that because it's so obvious from the composition of the team. If you don't have that, if you have a super team, not only will someone just not be as effective, but crucially, you don't have a natural like understanding of where we're going to get our edges in the team. And so unfortunately, I think a lot of teams just wind up thinking they can do anything, whereas you can't just because you've got the best players. You still have to find the right system for you.
Okay.
Think about Loco as a coach. Think about how much of being a coach when you first get to a team is like defining the team identity.
What is it? I tell my players
role balance. Yeah.
My job is defining the roles for you guys, and your job is role execution. I'll define the roles, and then you guys execute on the roles I gave you. So that's my job, and that's your job. So Gbay, I wanted to ask you about the kind of the challenger player angle. Do you think North America is not picking up talent because there is talent out there that they're not developing? Because from my perspective, I don't think there is good talent for North America.
Well, I think there has been, not even necessarily in North America, maybe, but there is talent out in the world that I feel like teams could be going after, like especially teams. I don't know that much about the financials of individual teams, but I've typically followed CLG, and I've seen a lot of CLG fans in the past say, "Oh, CLG's never going to go out and sign the big Bjergs, and they're not going to go and compete with signing Faker because they don't have the money to do so." But if that's the case, which I don't know if that's actually true now because of franchising, everyone having millions of dollars to play with, but I feel like there's plenty of talent that's young right now that players could, or that teams could go after and try and develop into the next great superstar, that whether it's in the challenger scene in North America or if it's someone in the Turkish league, which I'm happy to see TSM succeeding so much with Broken Blade, or like in all the various different leagues in Europe now, like the different regional leagues. I feel like it would be so much more beneficial for teams to go and try and develop young talent into something great rather than just trying to constantly mix and match. Oh, well, we'll have 2 former world champions, and we'll get this star NA player, and we'll get these great players to fill our import slots, and then it doesn't work, and then they just try and mix and match it consistently over each individual split. I feel like there's a lot of teams that it seemed like has done that. Pretty much the only team that is stuck with players to a point of a fault almost is CLG. They have consistently tried to develop players who probably can't be developed any more than what they already are. But I don't know. I don't know that much about the challenger scene, but in particular, Licorice, and even Quaz maybe. Like there have been times in the past where there have been superstar players where people have been like, oh, this guy's really talented. I can't wait till he makes it into LCS. And then they don't get promoted into LCS because it's still a challenger team that struggles a lot. Why doesn't someone go and sign them? They just continue playing in the challenger scene for seemingly forever. And that's kind of my views there.
Okay. So for the challenger player perspective, I don't think there's a lot of talent in North America, and also talent is very raw. Like when you have raw talent, you're supposed to develop it through a lower level team, and then a slightly higher level team, and then a team beyond that. North America fails at that so greatly. It's so hard to go from solo queue academy into LCS. Like that system is so rough and so fucking shitty. Doran, you have something to say. Spit it out.
Here's the problem, right?
Spit it out.
I have a theory that half the reason I'm able to be relevant in literally like my fucking 9th esport game, that I don't even watch all the games now, and I tell you straight up, I don't fucking watch the shit. Half the reason I'm able to do it, Loco, is because of how bad your motherfuckers who are native to this game are. Like, you're terrible at analysis, like you're fucking garbage at scouting players. If there's one thing I can do in CSGO that I would challenge a lot of people, I think I'm better than most people in the world at, is if you show me a guy who 2 years from now you say, will he be a top pro? Will he never make it? I bet my accuracy would be really good, because I think I can look at players and see, even if they're not good yet, like what the skills are. Like, you know, does he have something there? Is something with his game sense? People in League of Legends, and I'm only jokingly flaming you, because I actually think everyone has this problem in League of Legends. It's got to be one of the worst team games I've ever seen for scouting talent. And there's a lot of logical reasons. Like, I always tell people the worst thing about League of Legends, yeah, the game changed every few months. So maybe when you saw that guy and he was in his Challenger promo game to get in the LCS, maybe that was the month where it was tanks and he was a carry top and his team couldn't play the way he wanted to. Another option that's in a bad one is in CSGO, if I go off individually, you can't really stop me getting decent numbers. People like Simple, they just get their numbers no matter what. It's like James Harden in the NBA. If he shoots enough shots, he's going to get his points. It doesn't matter how you defend him, how you do against the rest of his team. But League of Legends isn't like that, because the entire game snowballs against you when you're on the losing team. Like, I can be losing my lane by 5 CS, but then some moron feeds the AD carry in the bot lane and he's 2 items up and now the game's over. I didn't do anything wrong as a top laner, but my game is over and my chance to show myself to be good is largely over. Like, I can't look like the best player in this game. So the point is this. I noticed that generally the track record most people have of picking out talent, Loco, is pretty fucking bad. Like, you can't find me someone 2 years ago in the Korean scene who was like, Keen's going to be the best top laner 2 years from now. You can't find me someone 2 years ago who said Licorice on a United. Get him on Cloud9. It'll be fucking amazing. Get Impact out of it. He's watched. There's not a person exists like that. That's why actually I do give credit to LS. That even though LS overplays his hand a bit, he definitely only picks the selective choices that worked. He has had a pretty good track record of picking out talent really early. That's the key thing, really early. It's not like he picked them out when they got promoted to Fnatic. No, he picked them out like a year before or something, you know. So I will say, everyone in NA says what you say now, Loco. Every year, if someone like Gbay said, why don't you just go and get the top talent from Challenger? They'd say the same thing. Yeah, there really isn't a lot of talent in Challenger. It's like, that can't be true every single year, because we know every year people came through. So people like Licorice did come through.
So there's like
people like
Licorice, Zazel. Licorice, Zazel are like the very, very big outliers, and I think C9 does a great job of investing into their academy team, not just getting the best player. 6 months
ago, you were telling me Wiggly was the fucking truth and that he needs to be worked on with CLG. He's going to be the next top NA jungler. You said these things.
Yeah, I still think
came through, Matt came through, all these fucking players come through. The point is, this is the real problem I'm going to nail right now. Listen to what I say, Loco.
I'm listening.
Even though, again, you will never be a coach again in your life. And I wish it wasn't true. A lot of people wish it wasn't true. No, because this show's going to succeed too much, baby. So don't worry about it.
I'll tell you something. I'll tell you something after stream. Are you sure? But I'll tell you something after stream. But go ahead.
The new coach at Fongbu Buffaloes is Loco. Anyway, what I was going to get at is this. The big problem is this, is a lot of people in NA have the same thinking I always call Loco out for. And I don't call him out because it's wrong. It's just a different way of thinking from how I do it. So when I look at a player, I try to ask myself, what is this player's skill set and what is his reasonable potential? So as a result, you notice I actually get a lot of credit, Loco, for being able to pick the player who looks like he's on the downward trend now. And I'm like, no, I will take Mithy to be very good again in 6 months. Because the idea there is, I think the potential's good, the skill set's great. At the moment, the form is bad, but form can change. You have a real problem with that, and a lot of NA people have a problem with that. Because what happens is, when you play in Challenger, you look at that player and go, yeah, he's good, but he's not that great. Mm-hmm. How's he going to look? I'll give you a great concept. I had this idea the other day, and it's a counterintuitive, but it makes perfect sense. When a Western player, so I'll give you a great example, your beloved Bjergsen. Say Bjergsen had a game, this happened, where he actually outperformed Crown from Samsung 3 years ago, I think it was at Worlds, right? Would it be 3 years ago? Yes, 3 years ago at Worlds. If Bjergsen outperforms Crown, technically Bjergsen should get even more credit than Crown would have for winning that matchup, because we surely acknowledge Crown has better teammates than Bjergsen does, right? Mm-hmm. So if Bjergsen won out and he was on a worse team, he's way better than Crown is, just in this circumstance. Obviously, as a player, he wasn't. Similarly, if we're playing in Challenger and this player is going to prove himself to be LCS quality in Challenger with Challenger teammates, he's not only going to have to be good, Loco, he's going to have to be 4 times better than he should be to stand out like that in a game. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, you're going to take him at the level he's at, and you're going to see him at the level he's at, and you're not going to see the potential because you don't have the players around him. He hasn't been in LCS yet. He hasn't had LCS coaching. He hasn't played against LCS opponents in real games. All the factors that would make him the player he could become haven't come into play yet. So I'm not only flaming you, but I notice in NA in general, they never think there's talent, mate.
No,
they never do.
I definitely do think there is talent in NA. It's just the system is so fucking bad, so it makes discovering talent fucking god awful. The academy coaches are bad, and there's no system below academy. Solo queue is fucking terrible. So when you have someone that's talented and you put them through a system, they'll rise up. Leader on Misfits Academy, they'll rise up and there'll be a tournament. There'll be environment where they can shine. NA Academy is so fucking bad. The team that won NA Academy, TSM Academy, you look at players in TSM Academy and you're not holy shit, they're the greatest. You're it's NA Academy. Cause the system to discover talent is really bad. It's really hard to evaluate talent, and it's really hard for talent to show their worth. So that's where I think the problem is, not the lack of talent. The infrastructure is so fucking garbled. That's the biggest problem.
Say, the cynical move would be to combine the 2 points together, which is, if you're an NA team right now, CLG is a great example, where you don't have the best players, and crucially, like Gbay said, you haven't at least shown the tendency that you're going to sign the big superstar. So you're not going to get, the big name that turns your whole franchise around. What you should literally have been doing for this last week wasn't watching MSI. You should have been watching EU Masters, and you should now be sending out requests to some of these players to talk to their team, because the players in EU Masters, I wouldn't take some of them over the best players, of course, but some of them are definitely worth a shot. Someone, like you say, Leader, Sacre for SK Pratt, these players absolutely should get a crack from some team.
All right. Give me 30 seconds while you talk, GB. I'll go to the bathroom.
All right, we'll talk while he's out. It's all right.
Okay. And I think another thing that kind of gets frustrating when people look at how they evaluate talent and stuff is that, firstly, talent is totally individual. If you look at any other sport, you will see players that are on no-name college NBA or college NCAA teams, like Ja Morant, or you will see kids out of Wyoming playing quarterback who do nothing at the collegiate level that teams will then go and pick with a top pick in the draft, because it's not about how the team plays. It's about the skill set that the individual player has, but also the fact that just nobody is doing it, or maybe I'm not paying enough attention, but it feels like there is not nearly as many teams that are trying to take shots at it, because when it comes to scouting in any sport, you're considered an amazing scout if you get 20% of your picks to remain in the top league for forever. If you can pick, in the NFL draft, you get 10 picks, 14 picks. If you have 2 of them that are still on your team after 4 years, that's considered an amazing draft for you. The fact that, you know, if you take a shot at some guy who looks like he's going to be amazing and then he peters out, then okay, that sucks, but the fact that you took the shot was a good thing. Like, that's exactly what you should be doing, particularly in, like, North America in particular, I feel like could really benefit from that because it's mostly dominated by imports. If you could get a local amazing top laner or a local amazing mid laner, if you could have the best mid laner whose residency is from North America, so then you could go and sign whatever big guy that you want in other roles who's a former world champion and everything. That would be so beneficial. And just the fact that it seems so few teams are really making a conceited effort to go out and do that. Like, I don't know that much. This is pure speculation, but I wonder how many teams have like dedicated coaches, or not coaches, dedicated scouts that they pay to specifically go and watch EU Masters or specifically go and watch the Turkish League and try and like compile scouting reports to say, oh, this guy could actually be an amazing signing for us. Not only could he give us a great top laner or whatever, but we could get him for pennies compared to what we're paying the $1 million former world champion that we currently have.
Yeah. By the way, you just know Loco just ran off there, pulled out the burner cell phone. He was like, Reggie, could you just like lie and tell Thorin that you're hiring me to be the academy coach? No. Well, could I just say that? No. What do you mean? Where did I get this number? Hello? It's like, and then all of a sudden it's a like number being removed or something, you know?
I'm blocked next time I try calling him.
Exactly.
Okay.
No, so anyway, his point there, basically, Loco, is in line with like the point I made in that video a while back, which is like, that should be the number one thing you invest into. If there really, let's say we accept your premise, there isn't that much NA talent right now. Well, then you should obviously be sending scouts out to watch EU, to watch Korea, to look for the next potential talent. Because crucially, what he said there is exactly what I agree with. If you get that guy, yes, it's a gamble. Like I would guess if you sign 10 of them, maybe 2 might be good. But if you get one of those guys and he really is good, you are paying pennies on the dollar to get this guy. Like the actual gamble even has an upside financially.
That's the greatest thing about NA. We might not have talent, but we have money, and you get to live in Los Angeles, baby. It's sunny all year long. Whether you want to go to Hollywood, you want to go to Universal, you want to go to Disney, it's literally the best place in the world to live. So we might not be great at League of Legends, but we got the money, and we can bring in the imports.
Here's what I will say though, Loco. That's also the reason why I personally think NA owners are dumbasses. Because when they got imports, who did they import? Koreans. You haven't thought this through at all, have you? Import the guy who lives in fucking rainy Europe, who has no pussy because he's just a fucking nerd, and he's sat in a boring room in like Berlin, like, kill me now, I have to play 15 hours to come 7th in the LEC. Get that guy and tell him, come out to sunny LA. Look at this. These girls barely know what the fuck they're talking about. They probably think your accent is charming. Let's go out to the nightclubs. Do. You know, this could actually have some fun here. You get paid better. You have fun. You got the sun. You got everything going for you. This is the shit. Europeans would be all over it. And secondly, the other aspect is this, Loco. That is the worst pitch ever to Koreans, because Koreans do just sit in a bedroom playing all day. They'd be better in Europe. The Koreans who go to NA, let's sign some guy who's just spent his last 2 years playing in a fucking Korean team 14 hours a day, and let's tell him about K-Town and about all the groupies that are out. That's a terrible thing to do. You're going to ruin that guy. He's going to be He's going to be GBM'd by the time he's had one split. Little spoiler for people there. One day that story will come out. Maybe it might be. Who knows? Anyway, the point is, you'll ruin those guys. Half the Koreans who go to LCS, I'm sure you could corroborate this, Loco, either get ruined like that and they become more like it is because they're like, oh, cool, don't have to do that much practice. Or even worse, this is the most depressing one. They do sit in their team house practicing all day, playing solo queue all day, and then they just think, this sucks even more. My own teammates don't even fucking do it this much. Like, they're not even trying. Like, they get super depressed. They go into, like, stage 10 levels of depression.
Yo, speaking of all the things we talked about, like CLG, like imports and stuff, there's actually a news that's going on right now that's very, very relevant. CLG, so the rumor was CLG is picking up Ruin. Darshan just tweeted like an hour ago that he is no longer on CLG. So it's ruined for CLG most likely. What do you think, Doran? Let me double check the source, but what do you think?
I mean, listen, it's not a terrible move. The Problem is, I saw Room when he actually played in the LEC. It was LCS at the time. Wasn't that great, but to be fair, he wasn't on a good team. So I guess there is a world in which if you give him a good squad, he could do something. To be fair, CLG had a good team except top lane. Like, they had some good pieces, so I don't mind it as a gamble. Here's the thing. Of all the teams that could try it in LCS, I don't think there's a bad one to try it. It's not a bad attempt. Again, you are importing a Korean and not even like a world-class one, so not a huge fan of that. But I would assume the real reason they're doing it is because if he's willing to play for the team he's playing for now, he probably doesn't make a massive salary. So it's probably a cheap move. That's the difference. It's not like signing Rainover or someone for $1 gajillion. You're probably getting him fairly cheap as an import. So I don't mind it as a gamble. So Darshan was terrible anyway. I'm sure at this point in time, Darshan's probably just going to be doing a fucking residency in Vegas, doing all the short shit. Fucking hell. And then he's serenading someone in the audience. Do you ever know that? He's a fucking joke. I love him in one level, but on the other hand, I just want to laugh in his face when he starts singing like that. Are you for real? Are you for real?
So before Gbay goes, I'll give a little context.
Do you know the irony, of course?
What?
Is that Darshan, this is a triple layered joke. Are you ready?
Okay.
Darshan, who used to play for CLG and thinks he can sing, should go on America's Got Talent. Well done, Darshan, NA scene.
Okay.
May as well end the episode now. It's not going to be anything better than that. Not going to be anything better than that, is there? Anyway, back to the show.
Gbay, so before you go, a little bit of context.
I haven't really ended yet. He can still give more opinions, obviously.
Yeah. No, before you go, like before he says his opinion, right. Irene, the current strategical coach of CLG and the current person that does all the strategy stuff, is the old coach for Ruin. Who used to be on, they both worked in the Turkish league. So there is some connection there. And also Ruin speaks really good English. What are your thoughts on the move?
I like that. I mean, I feel like CLG is the one exception to the rule with a lot of stuff in North America in the past where they have seemed like the one team who is willing to spend time like anchored to players who are playing horribly for long periods of time, just because they think that they do have talent and they might be able to develop them into becoming better. Again, they've of course had plenty of problems with their management and their coaching and everything in the past, like way back in seasons 1, 2, 3, and so on. But the
main problem, as far as I heard that they had this last year, was they kept asking Nick Allen, like, what the fuck's going on with this team? And he goes, it's fine, okay, listen, CLG, it's fine. So the throwback for the old people who remember the jokes. Anyway, keep going. Don't let that distract you. Keep going.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like if I were to draw a comparison with CLG to like a traditional sports organization, CLG is like the Green Bay Packers with Ted Thompson or the Olympic Lyonnais or something of League of Legends, where they are so dedicated to developing talent and trying to make especially local talent work or young players that it almost hurts them and takes away possible playoff runs or championships away from them. So I love to see that they're finally making a move because I feel like they are one of the teams that it's almost gotten frustrating how stagnant their roster has been in the past and how just anchored they are to players that, I mean, sometimes it was like, I guess Smithy, he's maybe one of the better, if not best.
They let go of the wrong ones.
They were anchored with him for a while before they let him go. But
let's see the ones they kept. Stixay, Darshan, the ones they let go.
Well, the joke would be this, wouldn't it? It's like if you want to make a team out of basically the team of players CLG kicked is way better than their starting lineup now. Like they kicked Double Lift, fucking Smithy, Pobel. It's like, what are you doing? What on earth?
No, they kept Huhi, Stixay, Darshan, the real core, the real heart of CLG that actually won them the championships. You know, who needs talent when you have friendship?
He willingly left CLG. They weren't even done with him. He was done with them. That's where CLG, the team, is now. Like, they're like some hot woman from the 80s that I would have watched a film and be like, God, she's so hot. Now it's like, I wouldn't fuck her because she's like 75 years old now. So, like, that's who CLG is within the context of this scene. Like, I always give, the sports analogy I gave, I did a video on this a couple of years back, was to me, CLG is like the New York Knicks in basketball. Because bizarrely, even though they haven't been good,
they are owned by the Knicks.
Like they had what? That's why the irony that they later got bought by that company is ridiculous. Because except for like, I think the Knicks had 1 year where they went to the second round in like 2013 or something. But aside from that, they have been terrible for literally like 2 or 3 decades now. But the problem is, in people's brains, they still think that the Knicks should be a good team. Like, you hear every free agent discussion, it's always the same thing. Oh, Kevin Durant, he's definitely going to go to the Knicks because everyone wants to play for the Knicks. It's like, first of all, nobody wants to play for the Knicks. But that is still the fan expectation. Like, they're like, but with the Knicks, like, of course someone should want to play here. It's New York. It's such a sick market. Right? CLG has had fans like that for years where they're like, but we used to be so good. Like, if we just make the right signing, we can get back there. We can be good. It's like neither team is an elite franchise. Now you're at best mid-table. So at this point in time, as you're saying, you either have to be willing to spend big because you're going to have to overpay a free agent to come and be your star player. Or you've got to go the other route like we're talking about. And you've got to be the guy who tries a million gambles on all the unproven talent and hope that one of them turns out to be the next great AD carry, great middle, whatever. And that's how you're going to turn it around. Because if you just do what CLG and the Knicks both do in their respective fields, is you just buy the best players that are willing to come to the Knicks or CLG. And what does that make you? Mediocre, because who the fuck is willing to go to the Knicks? Who is willing to go to Seattle? It's only players who are like not that good, or they're washed up, or they're okay, or you can just only afford that player. So for me, both teams have to radically change things around if they ever want to be better again. Because at the moment, CLG is going to be a bottom feeder for a while.
Yeah. What do you think? What do you think Darshan does now? Honestly, not the Vegas joke.
Probably goes and sings for his fucking supper or something. Yeah, I don't bloody know, do I? He probably walks off and then some guy, I'd be singing that to him if I was his friend. Come on, Darshan, it means no worries. Come on. What a joke. What an absolute joke. The saddest thing is as well, and think about this, Loco, in the context of league. I mean, Gbay followed as well from the early days. The most brutal thing is, why did Darshan have to become bad like a year and a half ago? This would have been his dream meta, where you can just play split, push and carry top laners. The guy tried to do that for years when it was a tank meta. This would literally have been his time to shine.
You know what? Also, the really shitty thing for Darshan,
why?
If back then when you were shit but you were popular in LCS, you could quit and become a streamer because streaming wasn't over saturated. So here's someone extremely popular that tried streaming for a few months and didn't get past that 100 viewer average. High when you talk about popularity and when you talk about legendary status. I'm surprised the
fucking LCS broadcast gets past 100 concurrent viewers when that guy's on it. He bores me to fucking sleep. He's better than fucking NyQuil.
High is literally one of the most legendary players in all of North America. Sick. He would be top 5 like North American legend. Like if North America opened up Hall of Fame, High fucking first ballot
for sure.
Instant in there. So someone like High with his popularity and his like legend status can't make it as a streamer nowadays. Imagine High retired 3 years ago and he started streaming. Average 5k, easy peasy. 10k maybe. Like it would have been fucking easy for High. Like it wouldn't have been a problem for High at all. But the fact that he can't right now it's fucking like Darshan can't even go into streaming now. Like it's so over what is it, saturated. I don't know what he does now other than playing.
Would he like to play for Fongvu Buffalo? Because I can get him into plans for next year. If you ever want to play internationally again, hook me up, Josh, and I'll take a finder's fee. Like you do with any talent out there. But I'll hook you up with the right people.
Gbay thoughts.
Let's do the reverse trade. You go and play for Ruin's X team. Do you want to play for Fenerbahce in 1907? I think we can make this happen. I think we can make it happen.
Yeah, I mean,
alternatively, stream as a 5-man stack, and then if things start getting boring in the game, well, obviously the game alone can't entertain you. So one of you starts, hello, my baby. You add a bit of entertainment, a bit of the showman. You get the hat on, the top hat, the cane. Well, maybe too much cane for some of those NA streamers, but yeah, enough about that.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like the most sad part about, because I've been following CLG since that 2010 World Cyber Games, and I've always hoped that they would make some sort of right decision to be good and get good, and then seeing them choose to stick with Huhi over Pobelter just broke my spirit as a fan. To Huhi was not playing. I mean, maybe my memory's failing me, but it felt like at the time Pobelter was clearly the better mid laner. He didn't take up a residency slot. He was he was the best.
So valuable.
the best American mid laner, right? I mean, it was so soul crushing to see. And then of course everyone else, Doublelift, Afromu, and sticking with Darshan for all these years now.
Dude, shit is fucking rough for players like Huhi, Darshan, like players that, oh my god, if they were bad sooner, their life would have actually been better. Like literally for players like Huhi and Darshan, if they were bad sooner, it would have been better.
Like there is one angle to this that I have to like speak about a bit though, which is I can't entirely blame them. Like I do blame CLG, basically kind of what we've narrowed down here, which is when you win the championship, at least try and fucking sign the same team again for one more split so you can go back to back. Like that's not asking too much. So that is egregious then to let Doublelift go and to get Paul Belter out of the team. And that part I agree with. But the problem is, the one part I actually sort of see where they went down a dark path is if you think of all those years where, like, you know, the saddest thing, Loco, is like, think about your era when you were the coach of TSM, right? Mm-hmm. The first split you were the coach of TSM was the last split when Monty was a coach. Mm-hmm. And if you remember the CLG teams that he had, so he had the team where it was Afromu and Doublelift bot lane, Link mid lane, Dexter jungle, and before Dexter, who was it before him? It was like Chowster or something like that.
Chowster or Trick.
Oh, GG, that was it. Big fat GG, sorry. And then top lane obviously was at one point Neon Tonso, and then it changed to Seraph, right? Mm-hmm. So aside from top lane, where yes, admittedly they clearly had problems with both those players, elsewhere on the map they had some very good players. Like the bot lane, the Rush Hour bot lane was obviously good, but probably the player everyone forgets is like Link was a very good mid laner, right? Mm-hmm. So they had pieces, they had quality pieces, but the problem they had in those teams was it always collapsed internally, personality-wise and in playoff scenarios. So unfortunately, the message that sent to CLG management was like, it's not about just having good players or players with potential. It's about having players who get along with each other, who can be coached, who are a cohesive unit. So if you look at what they initially did, they went towards that direction. They went towards the super team with Darshan, the super friends team rather. Like we're all best buds of like Darshan and Huhi and Afromu and Stixit. Like, what arguments is there going to be in this team? Of course there aren't going to be. It's a great team for that. The problem they didn't realize was it is still a video game. Like just having people who get along well isn't going to be enough. You still have to be good at the video game. Like they sort of fixed one problem and fucked up the other one.
They have nothing now. CLG has none of the legacy players. They have none of the legacy players. They have none of the talent. They have none of the rising talent, maybe outside of Wiggly. Like everything they hedge their bet on, they don't have. Their coaching staff is brand new. I don't want to say they have nothing, but they lost. Like Tony is someone with wealth of experience. Like he took TSM to final. Like that gutter of a team. Like a rookie in Acadian and Broken Blade. I know they aren't rookies, but very new, fresh players in Acadian and Broken Blade. And Zben, who wasn't really working out for TSM, and he took that to finals. Like they don't even have that coach anymore. They don't have the coach. They don't have the legacy player. They don't have the talent. Like they literally have nothing. Like what the fuck does that organization have now? Like what value do they bring? Like they are actually in one of the worst spots. Like they're in like contention with like Optic, Clutch Gaming, or the new Dignitas. Like they have nothing as an org. They're one of the oldest orgs in League of Legends, and currently they have nearly zero assets. If CLG as a team died tomorrow, people wouldn't even come up to their corpse and pick out some of the leftovers. Like they would just let the leftovers rot. Like that's the current state they're at.
Wait a minute. The only thing that threw me off a bit there, Gbay, was like, I don't know if we're missing something like cross-culturally. Like, is that a thing in Korea? Do people just die on the street and then you go, right, well, his kicks is shit, so I'm not even going to bother looting his body like fucking Skyrim in real life? Like, what world are we living in where people are doing this? Like, have you been at the fucking medieval fair again? What are you talking about? Why are there people just dying on the ground? Like, I'm not even going to bother looting his corpse. What the fuck?
It's true though. The only person that might get looted is Pyre Beeble. Other than Pyre Beeble, like who would people pick up from CLG?
And you know what's weird is if you go and loot Power of Evil's corpse, you go, that doesn't even make sense. Why would he have an item like this? That's very unusual, actually. That was straight fire, by the way, for anyone who gets that one. I'll leave it there. I like to leave them subtle.
You think Bio will get? Bio should get offers like Bio, Pyre Beeble, but it wouldn't even be from top tier teams. It would be from other bottom tier teams, like trading up. CLG has nothing. They got nothing.
It depends what the team is. Like, put it this way. I'd take Biofrost on fucking Golden Guardians in a heartbeat. Let's get that move sorted out ASAP, please.
That's not even like an insane upgrade. That's just like,
oh no, that's a doable move. That might even be one that's possible if he's willing to leave. Yeah, sure. My big problem is, like you say, it's not even where they are as a team. It's not even the coaching situation. The biggest problem, as you said, is that they retained zero of the big names. Like, you can be I'll give you a great example of a bad team right now who could change things overnight, and that's Optic Gaming. Because Optic has Crown, who's a fucking monster player right now, has a huge name. They have Darlock and Meteos. Like, you don't need to do much to get this team turned around, because people might actually want to play with those guys. No one's going to join CLG because you're not going to pay them the most. They don't have any players that you want to play with. They don't have an Afromu or a Bjergsen, or they don't really have anyone. So as a result, I don't really know the reason why you would join CLG at this point in time. You'll have to be a player who himself is in a position in his career where these are the only teams available to you, and you yourself think, I'll take a gamble and hope they get better. Like, there's no big name free agent going to CLG.
Gbay, as a CLG fan, any thoughts?
I mean, if you go to CLG, you'll have job stability. You can play very. You can have ups and downs and plenty of downs, and they will not
a
give
lot
up
of downs.
That's the one thing they have.
Plus, if you go to CLG, if they ever call you out, just turn to the coaching staff and say, I personally don't believe talent exists, so I think I'm really as good as you guys training me, so maybe you should put in a bit more effort there. And then he goes, yeah, but did you know that I once helped this 45-year-old Finnish swimming relay team get shaved 2 seconds off their thing. It's like, maybe you should fucking go back to the swimming pool, mate. League of Legends isn't working out for you. Go straight in a line, left, right, left. Fucking nailed it. Anyway, whatever. You could tell this wasn't that serious an episode, was it? Half it was just talking absolute shite and then just going, fuck it, just extend this metaphor for 2 more minutes. Is it over yet?
Okay.
No. Still not over, right?
Gbay.
What was the? No, wait. There was another video that you wanted that we were going to talk about.
Oh, Zben. What is it? Coming back on Twitter and actually, what is it saying? What went on?
Oh, right, that news. Yeah. So basically, here's the story. After the LCS final, where obviously in Game 5 there was 2 very, very notable moments from Sven. There was the one where he got caught in the top side brush on the left side of the map, and then there was the one where, right outside the Dragon Pit, he just, for some bizarre reason, E-forwarded as Ezreal and then got completely shit on from the brush by, I think, Jensen and maybe Doublelift. I forget who the other player was there. So anyway, after this final, Sven, probably intelligently, kept his head down, went full radio silence, didn't say anything whatsoever on Twitter, Facebook, nothing. He didn't even do the usual move that players like, I apologize to my fans for letting them down, which I've always thought is kind of bullshit, but whatever. If you do it as a fake fuck, I guess you can win some people over with it. But he's finally come out and made a statement. And what he did is first of all, he did the classic move where it's like, Twitter already has a character limit, so why don't I post a picture of my thoughts so I can get more words in there, which is like, all right, hacker man, fucking hell. Do you know what Twitlonger is? Like, you haven't done some sick shit there by just posting a picture, you moron. But anyway, except now everyone who has pictures turned off can't read your comment. And he gave basically his thoughts. And the basic gist was along the lines of, like, he actually sets the tone that he has very, very high expectations of himself, because he says he's actually never played a best of 5 where he thought, like, I played amazingly there, like, did everything great. He then addresses that, like, yeah, obviously he had problems in this final, but he believes that, NA is the right place for him. He feels more comfortable, likes TSM as a squad. So there's a lot we can go off here. So first things first, as a topic I thought to ask about was, like, Gbay, what do you think about this angle of, like, if you're the player who's going to be scapegoated, like all the fans are going to go in on you, what do you think about just going radio silence, not saying anything at all?
Well, I think that's I feel like that's a smart move. I mean, I think this is something that, oddly enough, is almost a problem that's, I don't want to say it's exclusive to esports, but it's not something that you see a lot of athletes deal with, like in traditional sports. There aren't a lot of circumstances where a football player or a soccer player or someone will, make some sort of horrible mistake, and then they'll they have to deal with this huge amount of fan backlash because they're always going on Twitter and reading Reddit and interacting directly with the fans. And on top of that, there's probably, this might be reading too much into things, but there's probably a little bit of a connection of, okay, if you're playing a traditional sport, you're playing with a ton of people in a huge team environment. People are ribbing each other all the time. You're already I'm sure, the butt end of plenty of jokes, and you can deal with it if fans throw some criticism your way. Whereas if you're just playing if you're sitting in your room playing League of Legends all day for like 2 years and just interacting with, teammates flaming each other and everything, and then you go and join a pro team and suddenly you have thousands of people that are always haunting you anytime you make a huge mistake, that's probably a little bit tougher to deal with. But I feel like that's a smart move, because there's nothing that you're going to be able to say. It's almost frustrating how fans will, maybe they'll do it to try and get under the player's skin, but the player knows they made the mistake. I mean, there are very few circumstances where the player needs to hear huge amounts of criticism and I shouldn't have gotten caught out 1 versus 5 at that Baron that caused us to lose the game. I didn't know that. The coaches didn't know that. Somehow we didn't realize that was the issue that caused us to lose game 5. Thank you for telling me that, hurtful fan number 2000 on Twitter. So I feel like that's probably that's probably the best thing you can do. And of course, I agree. It's frustrating when people are, oh, I'm sorry, we'll do better next time. This was just, I know I let all you guys down. If you're going to do better, then just do better. Actions speak louder than words. It's so, especially if you're a fan of that team and you see them constantly coming up short, just hearing that every time, stop talking about it. Just do it. And if you do it, then we'll applaud you for it. But other than that, yeah, I feel like that's the best thing that anyone can do in that circumstance, because this has been a problem that players have dealt with for a really long time. It's felt like.
I actually think Zven, I thought his statement was good, but it definitely left a mark on Zven. Watching TSM Legend and like watching how depressed he was, and also the kind of social media break that he took instead of even tweeting out like GG or like anything for it, and the amount of break that he took, I actually do think it left a dent on Zven. And if they lose in a best of 5 versus TL, or if they even play TL again in the next best of 5, the stakes are going to be so fucking high. And they won't even be the favorite. So I think more likely they lose to TL again, and then it's actually going to be so fucking bad. So
the sickest thing about that is it almost is like some insane karma for him constantly hovering the Echo against Jensen, because people made that storyline against Jensen every time he's played TSM now, like, oh, but you're the one who cost them the game, which was never true. He just could have won them the game. That's the difference. Jensen fucked up slightly and lost a couple of finals to TSM and also some playoff series generally. Sven legit fucked the 5th game big time just himself, and now until he beats them, that will be repeated. So what's mad is he took something that took Jensen years to get that shit storyline, and he made it for himself.
Instantly.
He made that bed for himself. Like, haha, you're going to really love this bed with all these booby traps and shit. And then they're like, that's your bed, Sven. He's like, no. Then they're like, well, bedtime, off you go. No! It's like, he set that up. So in the end, he's hoisted by his own petard, as we say.
You know what's funny? Sven isn't the one that even thought of it. So in TSM Legends, you can see in the video, Broken Blade is like, oh, you know what would be funny if you towered over him and did this, and then so Jensen didn't know Sven was gonna do that, because in the rehearsal Sven wasn't doing it, so it was like a joke between Broken Blade and Sven, and he actually
in that case, it's even better that he got fucked over, because I actually like it even more when people were just little go-alongs, it's not even their idea, they're just following what the cool kids say, hey, I bet you won't go and just grab a bag or something, I will. And if you get wrecked, then you deserve to get wrecked twice, because you're doing stupid shit and it wasn't even your idea. It's like your mom always said, if he told you to run in front of traffic, would you do that? No, Mom, I wouldn't. Different situation. It's like that. So fucking learn your lessons, Sven. Stop trying to be like all the cool kids, fucking Germany or whatever. Just start acting your age. Act like a Danish kid in TSM. Take all the abuse and play fucking sick and win championships.
Dude, Broken Blade made out like a fucking god afterwards. When we talk about Broken Blade, we're like, oh, he played so well in that series. He did amazing. He was the best player in that series. If MVP could be losing team, then Broken Blade would win it. And where Sven gets all the blame and Broken Blade is the one that told Sven to do it. When you think of it, it's so fucked up. Oh my god. I feel so bad.
He's the smartest 4 foot tall German guy I've ever met. And I've never met him. That was really just an excuse to diss him. That's why.
Speaking of TSM, why don't you tell us about the 1072 days documentary? Dorian will love this one.
Yeah, I think it was 1078. It was there was, I think the first documentary I did was on TPA winning season 2 Worlds, and then someone said, or I think someone mentioned to me, oh, it would be funny if you did a documentary on TSM or something. And like Thorne was saying, they aren't really documentaries. They don't take as much work as a real documentary. So I thought that would be fun to challenge myself, because I have always really disliked TSM.
I would always say the better way to describe it, by the way, is probably just like video essay. I think that's what people nowadays call them. You know, like kind of the nerd writer things. Yeah.
Garbage video.
Wait, you don't like TSM? Holy shit. That makes the three of us. JK.
Back in in the earlier seasons, pretty much ever since 2 onwards, I first didn't like TSM because I rooted for CLG and they were rivals against each other. But then at season 2, I hated how TSM stayed in North America and just swept every local tournament, while CLG, Fnatic, Moscow 5, even Dignitas went off to Korea with "I will dominate," getting some sort of food poisoning or something, having to get rushed to the emergency room. Like, every team was putting everything that they could into the season 2 worlds, and then TSM chose not to do that. I think Reginald said at some point that they were tied to their lease to the gaming house they bought in New York, and that was like a financial issue for them. But even so, I'm going to ignore that fact and just say it was frustrating to see them sit in North America, sweep every tournament, and then when they came out at Worlds, I forget who they played.
Frost.
They played Frost. And when they came out, they had like American flags and they were throwing candy into the crowd. Like they felt like they were so much about showmanship and just being this brand rather than a good team. Like 100 Thieves now, just focusing more on selling shirts rather than putting together a great product on the Rift. And then the fact that they actually ended up struggling so much from that, where even CLG, who would constantly lose to wildcards at international events, they could still beat Koreans, they would beat Rocks, they would still have success. And virtually every team from the West did, except for TSM. I thought that was a really kind of funny story and frustrating one too, that sort of spells a lot. It's a pretty good guideline to a lot of the early years of North American League of Legends, where TSM and to a lesser extent Team Curse were so focused on the financial aspect of it. Curse getting this huge fancy gaming house mansion in LA and then stocking it with like elements and players that were not really the best at the time. And similarly with TSM, just seeing all those decisions that they made was frustrating. But then at a certain point, it kind of, they become like the lovable losers, where you're like, okay, as much as it's been funny to see the Chicago Cubs not win a World Series since the Ottoman Empires existed, it would be nice if they won one now, right? At that point, I was thinking, okay, as much as I've ragged on TSM for all these years, it would be nice to see them represent NA well at one tournament, and then seeing them finally go and win that IEM that was probably the last time NA took first at an international event. I thought that was an interesting storyline and something to challenge myself, because I've always disliked TSM pretty heavily.
So the whole 1,078 days that's how long from when they first played?
So the first time they played against, it was either the first time they played against a, or it might have been the first time that one of the teams from the West, when all the Western teams went to Korea, and I said, that was their first opportunity to play a Korean, which shortly after that they played a Zubu Blaze in like one of the MLGs. So, maybe a little wiggle room on the days, but not that much. But it was like that many consecutive days that they had gone of, playing together, trying to improve, playing in LCSs, qualifying for Worlds, and then going and then faltering at the last step every single time.
And did it end with that Samsung game I referred to earlier? Was that the game?
Or it ended with their IEM. The
one that Loco was at.
Yeah.
Wait a minute.
It mentions that I think the Samsung.
That was only against CG Entis. Is that the one you're talking about? That's the game you're counting as a win.
Yeah, well, because
they shouldn't even have been at that tournament. They were just invited because of IEM. It's the best of one, and this is when like Space Prison was the thing. That's how whack Locodoco's career is. The amount of bullshit asterisks wins this motherfucker gets. This guy's got more asterisks on his resume. It looks like a fucking winter edition with snowflakes coming down. Fucking out straight fire, whatever.
Yeah, I mean, as much as they you could very easily argue, because they beat like WE, right? Who was like the 10th place team in China or whatever.
It was very rough.
You could
they had
certainly
to
argue that they didn't deserve to win that.
Whoa, no, you can't argue that at all. I don't think you can really argue that. I think they were
but like
truly
that was
deserving.
the gap, which is
Sure.
probably. I mean, I don't think that there's been another, at least top team in North America that had that long without even being able to take a game off of Koreans.
Well, Dorian, this story has your favorite topics: TSM, Locodoco, Andy, NA doing bad, NA playing versus Koreans. What's your take?
The tough thing for me is like TSM basically just represented all the things that were worse about NA League of Legends over the years. So it ties in with a lot of things we discussed in this episode. They constantly tried to just get the best players they could. Like one of the things that almost every TSM lineup in history has killed me over is their main strength throughout all of history is always team fighting. And then on top of that, they try to get really good players, so they're usually good in lane. But the problem is they never connected the two things together. Like they never had the really sick macro to connect the laning phase to the team fighting phase. So as a result, they could only win against NA teams who just team fight you or lose lane and then the game's over. So like I always thought TSM held back their region by being so good. Because there was other teams that had, like as you said, the CLG teams of that particular era in Season 2 had a way better matchup. All sorts of factors going on in that sense. Oh, I've just realised something actually.
What?
Wait there a second. Wait there 1 second. I've just got to quickly message someone, but I'll be...
Okay, what the hell? That's so random. Anyways, wait, did you also really think that victory wasn't that legit? What is it, us finally beating CJ?
You know, I don't want to say that it's not that legit, but it's like the storyline of them going and winning that tournament is just as much a storyline of like how crazy that tournament was, that WE even made it to that tournament and CJ and like that tournament in and of itself was, I think I say at some point in the documentary that, you know, there certainly are a lot of asterisks that you could put there, but they could only beat who was put in front of them, right? Like They couldn't choose who their opponents were. They could only beat who was there, and then they did, and they actually managed to win a tournament. So,
the one thing I will say is this: like the thing that killed me was TSM actually had the lineups over the years where they should have gotten some upsets by now. They should have beaten a Korean team for years before that, at least in a best of one or something, you know. But the big problem is, like, probably the other killer thing is, TSM spent so much of their time focusing on branding and having that enormous fan base they have now. And I actually do think that has killed them as a team. Because there are teams that are like Team Liquid now, okay? Every NA fan pretty much is shitting on them like, they're just going to get wrecked at MSI, they're not going to do well. Even so, they still don't have the same pressure on them that TSM did at some of those worlds over the years. Like, they had insane pressure. They had the sort of stupid pressure, because they had delusional fans who thought they should, like, win worlds or something. Some utterly unreasonable, you know. So, as a result, I actually think, unfortunately, that is the bad part about basically courting fans who are kind of dumb. They're just like very, very black and white thinking, you know, like we're the best or we're the worst. It's like if you have that sort of mentality, that's not going to be a great environment for your players to play for. Like one of the reasons I personally think Cloud9 always did better internationally is because they came in with no expectations. They nearly always came in as like the third seed, and they always came in with everyone like, you're just a cool team, you know, we don't mind if you don't do that well. If you do well, that's awesome, we'll celebrate you. Like that's such a laid back environment. So even though that's not an excuse, because if you're the best team, you should have pressure and you should play up to that pressure. I think all these things combined unfortunately just made it so that it was harder for TSM to win in these circumstances than it otherwise would be. Obviously, I enjoyed the fuck out of it, though. Wish it could have gone fucking 10,000 more days. Make it till the end of time that they never win. But whatever. I guess, you know what, Loco? As the old wisdom says, even a blind squirrel finds a nut eventually.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and
like when you found that CG Entus one. Yeah. Even you got one of the funny
things. One of the funny things about TSM and like this constant struggle was that they were the team that's like doing TSM legends on themselves. Like they're making all these shows.
Well, you know, Loco was saying. Loco was saying that he watched like TSM Legends after this file to get insight. He actually finally gets to enjoy that show like I used to. I used to say, no joke, it's my favourite soap opera. My favourite side character, Reginald, doesn't make many cameos anymore. Preferred it when he was a member of the fucking main cast. Used to love it whenever that guy came in the room. I told you, he's like Kramer. It's like, what wacky shit's he going to fuck up now? He just comes barging, right, hey, what's going on here, Jerry? I'm fucking coaching the team now, Elaine. It's like, fuck, you know. Kramer's here, let's see what's going on. I have to go now, by the way, so let's just make this the end.
Okay, wait. Let's divide TSM Legends into 3 eras. The Lust Boy Loco era, and then the double F Bjergsen era, and then now the Zben era. Which three out of the three eras? Where do you think TSM Legends?
First one, obviously.
Yeah,
first one, obviously.
We were by far the most popular TSM Legends, like Lustboy, Loco, Dyer's Turtle. Like that was the best TSM Legend base. Facts don't lie. Well,
I mean, all I need to say is this. This is why TSM Legends was an amazing concept. Because since the team themselves made the show, they could easily have edited it so that everyone looked great. Instead, whoever made that show, either themselves doesn't know enough about League or is fucked up enough, and if so, respect, that they actually would fuck over their own people. Because I remember when they left in a whole 5-minute discussion Reginald had, where he was berating Dyrus for buying the wrong boots. And Reginald wasn't even right. Reginald had no clue what the fuck he was talking about top lane in Season 5 and what boots they should be wearing. But whoever made that show was like, just leave this shit in. It's hilarious, isn't it? And I was like, yes, it is. Fucking standard ovation. That guy should have got the Oscar. He was a fucking amazing guy. What a humanitarian. But obviously, none of it is as good as Breaking Point by Team Liquid. Go watch it now on Team Liquid on YouTube. It's a fucking great documentary.
All right, before we end the show, Gbay, thank you so much for being on. Is there anywhere people can find you? Any final words?
Yeah, I'm currently working on another documentary on another lovable loser that has had struggles in the past.
Locodoco.
He said another. He said another.
All right, sorry, yeah.
That will hopefully be out soon, and I put up occasional vlogs talking about various esports things on the second channel, Gbay100, and stream occasionally on Twitch at twitch.tv/Gbay99. But thank you very much for having me on. I had a blast, and this was really fun.
All right. Well, thank you for being on.